Why didn't you just do the investigation as you would normally, with no public announcement?
Look, this was terrible. It makes me mildly nauseous to think that we might have had some impact on the election. But honestly, it wouldn't change the decision.
And I have to give the FBI credit. That was so bad what happened originally, and it took guts for Director Comey to make the move that he made in light of the kind of opposition he had, where they're trying to protect her from criminal prosecution. You know that.
She had the director say that he didn't think that there was enough evidence to charge her previously, and now he's received new evidence. He had an absolute duty, in my opinion, 11 days or not, to come forward with the new information that he has and let the American people know that too.
I respect the fact that Director Comey was able to come back after what he did. I respect that very much.
Lou, I don't think it's a little bitty matter. I don't believe he would announce this unless he thought there was something pretty darn serious here that he had to tell the American people about, rather than keep it secret, because if it's different from what he told the Congress in his testimony and the American people, then he had to correct it.
And it took guts for Director Comey to make the move that he made in light of the kind of opposition he had, where they're trying to protect her from criminal prosecution. You know that.
I didn't like the meeting that you mentioned on the airplane. It put Comey in a position that he had to make this announcement. He gave some facts when he made it. You could tell he probably wasn't happy with it. And now other things have come forward, and he's stepped up and done what his duty is, I think. He's got evidence to go forward now with further criminal investigation. He has no other responsibility than to follow that and then tell the American people what he's doing.
Good job by the FBI.
I have respect that the FBI has given it a second chance.
The FBI, and I give them a lot of credit, because they're fighting forces that they're not supposed to be fighting. Oh, and there's Jim. He's become more famous than me.
I've never done this before. Can I have a pledge, a swearing? Raise your right hand. I do solemnly swear that I, no matter how I feel, no matter what the conditions, if there's hurricanes or whatever, that's good enough, will vote on or before the 12th for Donald J. Trump for president. Thank you. Now I know. Don't forget, you all raised your hand, you swore. Bad things happen if you don't live up to what you just did.
Loyal to me are people that I didn't think would be. Some of the people that were least loyal to me are people that I think I would have treated them differently. I think I would have treated different groups differently. I would have wiped the floor with the guys that weren't loyal, which I will now do, which is great. You know, I love getting even with people, but I will. I would have wiped.
You love getting even.
Oh, absolutely. You don't believe in the eye for the eye. You do.
No.
I know you well enough. I think you do. But anyway, but
tell me. I mean, you're going to get even with some people.
Yeah, I know. If given the opportunity, I will get even with some people that were disloyal to me. I mean, I had a group of people that were disloyal.
But how do you define disloyalty?
They didn't come to my aid.
Well, what did they do? They turned their back on you?
No, but they didn't do small things that would have helped. I really put him on that board because of the fact I thought I was doing him a favor. He got some money by being a board member, et cetera, et cetera. He contributed nothing. When it came time, I had 5 board members. When it came time to removing the slate and getting all my people, everyone said, I'm leaving. Right. Steve Bollenbach, Harvey Freeman, everyone left, except this one particular person said, I don't want to leave. He told my people, I don't want to leave. Well, when I heard about it, I went nuts, and I blasted him, and all of a sudden he left. But I consider that a great act of disloyalty. I put him on that board. Now, he did leave. I mean, he did leave. It's a little like Andrew. I mean, Andrew ended up in favor of Riverside South, but for all I had done, I had never asked him for anything. This is a great job. This is a job that he should have been in favor. He had to do a poll in order to find out whether or not he was going to support
Yeah,
it.
but how can you get even with Andy Stein? I mean, this guy's...
It's not a question of getting even. It's loyal to me are people that I didn't think would be. Some of the people that were least loyal to me are people that I think I would have treated them differently. I think I would have treated different groups differently. I would have wiped the floor with the guys that weren't loyal, which I will now do, which is great. You know, I love getting even with people. But I will. I would have wiped.
You love getting even.
Oh, absolutely. You don't believe in the eye for the eye. You do.
No.
I know you well enough. I think you do. But anyway, but
tell me. I mean, you're going to get even with some people.
Yeah, I know. If given the opportunity, I will get even with some people that were disloyal to me. I mean, I had a group of people that were disloyal.
But how do you define disloyalty?
They didn't come to my aid.
Well, what did they do? They turned their back on you?
No, but they didn't do small things that would have helped. I really put him on that board because of the fact I thought I was doing him a favor. He got some money by being a board member, et cetera, et cetera. He contributed nothing. When it came time, I have 5 board members. When it came time to removing the slate and getting all my people, everyone said, I'm leaving. Steve Ballenbach, Harvey Freeman, everyone left, except there's one particular person said, I don't want to leave. He told my people, I don't want to leave. Well, when I heard about it, I went nuts, and I blasted him, and all of a sudden he left. But I consider that a great act of disloyalty. I put him on that board. Now, he did leave. He did leave. A little like Andrew. Andrew ended up in favor of Riverside South, but for all I had done, I had never asked him for anything. This is a great job. This is a job that he should have been in favor. He had to do a poll in order to find out whether or not he was going to support it.
But how can you get even with Andy Stein? I mean, this guy's...
It's not a question of getting even.
And I'm not going to say, I want you to pledge allegiance. Who would do that? Who would ask a man to pledge allegiance under oath?
Let's do a pledge. Everybody here, who likes me in this room? Okay, I've never done this before. Can I have a pledge, a swearing? Raise your right hand. I do solemnly swear that I, no matter how I feel, no matter what the conditions, if there's hurricanes or whatever, that's good enough, will honor before the 12th for Donald J. Trump for president. Thank you.
I took it as a direction. I mean, this is the President of the United States with me alone saying, I hope this. I took it as this is what he wants me to do. Now, I didn't obey that, but that's the way I took it. A really significant fact to me is, so why did he kick everybody out of the Oval Office? Why would you kick the Attorney General, the President, Chief of Staff out to talk to me if it was about something else? And so that to me, as an investigator, is a very significant fact. It's a fair judgment. It's my judgment that I was fired because of the Russia investigation. I was fired in some way to change, or the endeavor was to change the way the Russia investigation was being conducted. That is a very big deal.
Look, he's a showboat. He's a grandstander. The FBI has been in turmoil. You know that. I know that. Everybody knows that. You take a look at the FBI a year ago. It was in virtual turmoil less than a year ago. It hasn't recovered from that.
Monday, you met with the Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein.
Right.
Did you ask for a recommendation?
What I did is I was going to fire Comey. My decision. It was not...
You had made the decision before they came in the room.
I was going to fire Comey.
My common sense, again, I could be wrong, but my common sense told me what's going on here is he's looking to get something in exchange for granting my request to stay in the job.
He was going to fire regardless of recommendation.
So there was really...
He made a recommendation. He's highly respected, very good guy, very smart guy. The Democrats like him, the Republicans like him. He made a recommendation, but regardless of recommendation, I was going to fire Comey.
Let me ask you about your termination letter to Mr. Comey. You write, I greatly appreciate you informing me on 3 separate occasions that I am not under investigation. Why did you put that in there?
Because he told me that. I mean, he told me
He
that.
told you weren't under investigation with regard to the Russia investigation?
I've heard that from others. I think.
Was it in a phone call? Did you meet face to face?
I had a dinner with him. He wanted to have dinner because he wanted to stay on. We had a very nice dinner at the White House very early on. A dinner was arranged. I think he asked for the dinner. And he wanted to stay on as the FBI head. And I said,
I'll, consider. We'll see what happens.
Circumstances first, I was alone with the President of the United States, or the President-elect, soon to be President. The subject matter, I was talking about matters that touch on the FBI's core responsibility and that relate to the President-elect personally, and then the nature of the person. I was honestly concerned that he might lie about the nature of our meeting, and so I thought it really important to document. That combination of things I'd never experienced before, but it led me to believe I got to write it down, and I got to write it down in a very detailed way.
But we had a very nice dinner, and at that time he told me, you are not under investigation, which I knew anyway.
That was one meeting. What was it?
First of all, when you're under investigation, you're giving all sorts of documents and everything. I knew I wasn't under, and I heard it was stated at the committee, at some committee level, that I wasn't. Number one.
So that didn't come directly
Then
from
during
him.
a phone call he said it, and then during another phone call he said it. So he said it once at dinner, and then he said it twice during phone calls.
Did you call him?
In one case I called him, in one case he called me.
And did you ask, am I under investigation?
I actually asked him, yes. I said, if it's possible, would you let me know, am I under investigation? He said, you are not under investigation.
But he's given sworn testimony that there is an ongoing investigation into the Trump campaign and possible collusion with the Russian government. You were the centerpiece of the Trump campaign.
Well,
so
all I
was
can
he
tell
being
you is,
truthful when he says
I
you
know
were
one
under
thing. I know
investigation?
that I'm not under investigation. Me, personally. I'm not talking about campaigns. I'm not talking about anything else. I'm not under investigation.
There's little doubt that FBI Director Comey and the great special agents of the FBI will be able to collect more than enough evidence to garner indictments against Hillary Clinton. Oh, and there's James. He's become more famous than me.
A dinner with him. He wanted to have dinner because he wanted to stay on. We had a very nice dinner at the White House
asked for
very
the dinner?
early on. A dinner was arranged. I think he asked for the dinner. And he wanted to stay on as the FBI head. And I said, I'll, consider. We'll see what happens.
With regard to several of these conversations, in his interview with Lester Holt on NBC, the president said, I had dinner with him. He wanted to have dinner because he wanted to stay on. Is this an accurate statement?
No, sir.
Did you in any way initiate that dinner?
No. He called me at my desk at lunchtime and asked me, was I free for dinner that night? I called himself and said, can you come over for dinner tonight? And I said, yes, sir. He said, will 6 work? I think he said 6 first. And then he said, I was going to invite your whole family, but we'll do that next time. I wanted you to come over. And is that a good time? I said, sir, whatever works for you. And then he said, how about 6:30? And I said, whatever works for you, sir. And then I hung up and had to call my wife and break a date with her. I was supposed to take her out to dinner that night. And
that's one of the all-time great excuses for breaking the date.
Yeah. In retrospect, I love spending time with my wife. I wish I'd been there that night.
Did you ask that question?
No, I didn't. But I don't think it would be a bad question to ask. I think loyalty to the country, loyalty to the United States is important. It depends on how you define loyalty. Number one. Number two, I don't know how that got there because I didn't ask that question.
Can I have a pledge, a swearing? Raise your right hand. Raise your hand. You swore. Bad things happen if you don't live up to what you just did.
I respect the fact that Director Comey was able to come back after what he did. I respect that very much. And it took guts for Director Comey to make the move that he made in light of the kind of opposition he had. The FBI, and I give them a lot of credit because they're fighting forces that they're not supposed to be fighting. And I give them a lot of credit because they're fighting forces that they're not supposed to be fighting. There's little doubt that FBI Director Comey and the great special agents of the FBI will be able to collect more than enough evidence to garner indictments. I respect the fact that Director Comey was able to come back after what he did. I respect that very much. And it took guts for Director Comey to make the move that he made in light of the kind of opposition he had where they're trying to protect her from criminal prosecution. You know that. Good job by the FBI.
I have respect that the FBI has given it a second chance.
The FBI, and I give them a lot of credit because they're fighting forces that they're not supposed to be fighting.
Mr. Comey, a broad question. Was the Russian activity in the 2016 election a one-off proposition, or is this part of a long-term strategy? Will they be back?
Oh, it's a long-term practice of theirs. It stepped up a notch in a significant way in 16. They'll be back.
I think that's very important for the American people to understand that this is very much a forward-looking investigation in terms of how do we understand what they did and how do we prevent it. Would you agree that that's a big part of our role here?
Yes, sir, and it's not a Republican thing or a Democratic thing. It really is an American thing. They're going to come for whatever party they choose to try and work on behalf of, and they're not devoted to either in my experience. They're just about their own advantage, and they will be back.
They dinner with him. He wanted to have dinner because he wanted to stay on. We had a very nice dinner at the White House very early on. A dinner was arranged. I think he asked for the dinner. And he wanted to stay on as the FBI head. And I said, I'll, consider. We'll see what happens.
But in that same interview, the president said, in one case I called him, and in one case he called me. Is that an accurate statement?
No.
Did you ever call the president?
No. I might. The only reason I'm hesitating is I think there was at least one conversation where I was asked to call the White House switchboard to be connected to him, but I never initiated a communication with the president.
And in his press conference on May 18th, the president was asked whether he had urged you to shut down the investigation into Michael Flynn. The president responded, quote, no. Next question. Is that an accurate statement?
I don't believe it is.
You and I both know my father a long time. Well, when he tells you to do something, yes, guess what? There's no ambiguity in it. There's no, hey, I'm hoping. You and I are friends. Hey, I hope this happens, but you got to do your job. That's what he told Comey.
Thank you. With regard to the question of him being personally under investigation, does that mean that the dossier is not being reviewed or investigated or followed up on in any way?
I obviously can't comment either way. I can't talk in an open setting about the investigation as it was when I was the head of the FBI, and obviously it's Director Bob Mueller's responsibility now, so I don't know.
So clearly your statements to the president back in these various times when you assured him he wasn't under investigation were as of that moment. That correct, is it
Correct.
not? Now, on the Flynn investigation, is it not true that Mr. Flynn was and is a central figure in this entire investigation of the relationship between the Trump campaign and the Russians?
I can't answer that in an open setting, sir.
Certainly Mr. Flynn was part of the so-called Russian investigation. Can you answer that question?
I have to give you the same answer.
We'll be having a closed session shortly, so we will follow up on that. In terms of his comments to you about, I think you were in response to Mr. Risch, Senator Risch, he said, I hope you will hold back on that. But when when a president of the United States in the Oval Office says something like I hope or I suggest or would you, do you take that as a directive?
Yes. Yes, it rings in my ear as kind of, will no one rid me of this meddlesome priest?
I was just going to quote that in 1170, December 29, Henry II said, who will rid me of this meddlesome priest? And then the next day he was killed, Thomas à Becket. That's exactly the same situation. We're thinking along the same lines.
You and I both know my father a long time. Well, when he tells you to do something, yes, guess what? There's no ambiguity in it. There's no, hey, I'm hoping. You and I are friends. Hey, I hope this happens, but you got to do your job. That's what he told Comey.
Several other questions, and these are a little bit more detailed. What do you know about the Russian bank VEB?
Nothing that I can talk about in an open setting.
Well,
I know
that takes care of my next three questions.
I know it exists. Yes, sir.
You know it exists. What is the relationship of the ambassador from Russia to the United States, to the Russian intelligence infrastructure?
Well, he's a diplomat who is the chief of mission at the Russian embassy, which employs a robust cohort of intelligence officers. And so surely he's witting of their very, very aggressive intelligence operations, at least some of it in the United States. I don't consider him to be an intelligence officer himself. He's a diplomat.
Did the FBI ever brief the Trump administration about the advisability of interacting directly with Ambassador Kislyak?
I think all I can say sitting here is there were a variety of defensive briefings given to the incoming administration about the counterintelligence risk.
Back to Mr. Flynn. Would closing out the Flynn investigation have impeded the overall Russian investigation?
No. Well, unlikely, except to the extent there's always a possibility if you have a criminal case against someone and you bring it and squeeze them, you flip them, and they give you information about something else. But I saw the two as touching each other but separate.
With regard to your memos, isn't it true that in a court case when you're weighing evidence, contemporaneous memos and contemporaneous statements to third parties are considered probative in terms of the validity of testimony?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The FBI, and I give them a lot of credit because they're fighting forces that they're not supposed to be fighting.